Welcome to study session 5, African Oral Tradition. Introduction. Oral tradition is very important in African culture as it ensures the passage of cultural practices from one generation to another. Apart from storytelling, music and dance are important means of transmitting the oral tradition in the African society. In particular, dance is an integral part of the African culture, while music is a form of communication and it plays a functional role in African society. In this study, you will learn about the role of music and dance in oral tradition, the various forms of oral tradition, and the difference between oral tradition and history. Learning outcomes. At the end of this study, you should be able to 1. Discuss the role of music and dance in African oral tradition. 2. Explain the various traditional oral forms. 3. Explain the difference between oral tradition and oral history. Music and dance in African tradition. Many African languages are tone languages, meaning that pitch level determines meaning. Naturally, singing is very important to the African society because the melody and rhythm follow the intonation of the song text. The songs are often sung in call and response form. Oral tradition is very important in African culture as it ensures the passage of cultural practices from one generation to another. Listening is an equally important skill which has been perfected by the traditional oral practices. Numerous songs and dances have been transmitted by word of mouth. Music is a form of communication and it plays a functional role in African society. Songs accompany marriage, birth, rites of passage, hunting, and even political activities. Music is often used in different African cultures to ward off evil spirits and to pay respect to good spirits, the dead, and ancestors. Although the musical styles and instruments vary from region to region, there are more common forms of musical expressions. The most significant instrument in African music is the African drum. It expresses the mood of the people and evokes emotion. The beat of the African drum is the heartbeat of the community, and its rhythm is what holds the dancers together. Dance is an integral part of the African culture, and it utilizes symbolic gestures, masks and costumes, body painting, and props to communicate. The dance movements can be simple or complex, with intricate actions including fast rotations, ripples of the body, contraction and release. Dance is used to express emotion, whether joyful or sorrowful, and it is not limited to just the dancers. Often, spectators will be encouraged to join in. The African masks that are used in dances have religious, ceremonial, and functional origins. The artist who carves the mask will ceremonially purify himself and offer prayers to his ancestors for guidance before he begins the actual carving of the mask. The African mask represents a spirit, and it is believed that the spirit possesses the dancer as he wears the mask. The chosen dancer goes into a trance-like state in order to receive guidance and wisdom from the ancestors. The dancer will utter and moan the messages received, and a wise man who accompanies the dancer will translate the messages. Traditional oral forms. The following are some of the traditional oral forms that will be explained in this course. 1. Folk speech. 2. Jokes and riddles. 3. Proverbs. 4. Legends. 5. Myths. 6. Customs. 7. Beliefs. 8. Oral literature. Folk speech. Folk speech includes regional accents, local terms, specialized language, and other elements that make up the distinctive speech patterns of a region or occupation. Ethnic groups and local communities also have their own specialized languages. Jokes and riddles. These are obvious examples of traditional oral forms. They are learned from other people and change form slightly with each retelling. While a joke about a recent event may not have the depth in time usually associated with folk traditions, the fact that it is spread so rapidly indicates that it is widely shared and it addresses something important in the culture. Sometimes, jokes can be a way of dealing with uncomfortable situations. Proverbs, they are short, usually fixed phrases that encapsulate some bit of wisdom to be passed on at appropriate moments. Legends, legends are stories usually connected with a specific place or person and generally told as if they were true. The teller may not admit to personal belief in a legend, but it still take two. The teller may not admit to personal belief in a legend, but it is still told and passed on. Ghost stories, haunted places, local heroes, and tragic events all serve as the basis for legends. A legend is an old, well-known story often about brave people, adventures, or magical events. Myth. This is a story that has been passed down for so long that the people believe, but it is not true, that it is actually a part of their history. Customs. Customs refer to those regular practices that make up our traditions. For example, a tradition of the 14th of February is the celebration of Valentine's Day. It is the custom on Valentine's Day to give cards to loved ones. A tradition associated with the birthday is the birthday party. A number of customs are practiced, from the way to decorate a party room to the kinds of food that are eaten. Customs are action-oriented. Their orientation may be verbal, material, or related to belief. Customs are the ingredients of traditions. Beliefs, they are expressions of what people feel is true, real, and possible. Beliefs are transmitted by word of mouth as well as by example. A belief may be in the form of a verbal statement or a material expression. A gesture may express a belief too. Oral literature. It is a story that has been transmitted in spoken form, such as public recitation rather than through writing or printing. Most pre-literate societies have had a tradition of oral literature, including short folk tales, legends, myths, proverbs, and riddles and jokes, as well as longer narrative works. Oral history versus oral tradition. Some experts and scholars differentiate between oral history and oral tradition, but some do not. Anthropologist and historian Jan Vansina distinguishes the two as follows. The sources of oral historians are reminiscences, hearsay, or eyewitness accounts about events and situations which are contemporary, that is, which occurred during the lifetime of the informants. This differs from oral traditions in that oral traditions are no longer contemporary. They have passed from mouth to mouth for a period beyond the lifetime of the informants. Vansina adds that oral traditions may be spoken, sung, or called out on musical instruments only, and although they are passed down from a generation or more ago, they are not necessarily about the past, nor are they necessarily narratives. Summary of study session. In this study session, you have learned that 1. Oral tradition is very important in African culture, as it ensures the passage of cultural practices from one generation to another. 2. Folk speech includes regional accents, local terms, specialized language, and other elements that make up the distinctive speech patterns of a region or occupation. 3. Some experts and scholars differentiate between oral history and oral tradition, but some do not. This is the end of study session 5. Thank you.